The newest podcast covering all aspects of the biodiesel, renewable diesel, and sustainable aviation fuel industries is here. From the experts at Clean Fuels Alliance America, it's the Better, Cleaner, Now podcast. Authentic conversations uncovering the dynamic benefits of clean, renewable fuels. From enhanced performance and immediate cost savings to lower emissions, positive economic impact, and improved air quality. The benefits keep growing. This is the Better, Cleaner, Now podcast with your host, Scott Tremaine.
And welcome. This week, Clean Fuels Director of Communications, Heather Buechter, and Tom Verry, Director of Outreach and Development, showcased how biodiesel and renewable diesel are being used in South California. You'll also hear from Lisa Colicchio, Sustainability Director with Metrolink, about transitioning all trains to run on 100% renewable fuels.
Thanks, Scott. Last week on the podcast, you all heard all about California's low-carbon fuel standard from who we like to call the godfather of the LCFS, which is Floyd Vergara. But this week, we're going to take a look at how the LCFS has transformed the West Coast market. And Tom and I had the opportunity to bounce around Southern California recently. It's a fun trip, Tom.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. It always is. We got to show our stakeholders and farmers just how their soybean oil is being used. The California Air Resources Board, also known as CARB, reporting that 60% of the state's diesel pool currently is comprised of biomass-based fuels like biodiesel and renewable diesel. So it was really enlightening to see just how it's being used in that market firsthand. And we went all over the place, Tom.
We sure did, Heather. It's always a very interesting trip to go out to California. There, we did over 4 billion gallons last year, 4.6. They did 2 billion.
Huge market. Like
you said, 60% of their diesel pool is bio and renewable combination of. And they're heading to 100% according to UC Davis by 2028, which is just, really tomorrow. We had a great trip. It's always interesting to go there. We got to visit different users, producers out there. One of our neatest, interesting speakers we had was Titan Terminals and Transport, just south of downtown Los Angeles. They have a great story. They move about 4 million gallons of biodiesel and renewable diesel every month. A year ago was less than half of that. And 2/3 of that is biodiesel. So some people think California is not a biodiesel market. That is not right.
It is.
It is becoming a very, very big biodiesel market. What this company will do, you get your car a biodiesel or renewable diesel into their facility. They'll handle it from there. They'll take care of the city, county, state regulations. It's probably one of the most heavily regulated market we have or place to do business. And they'll do it. And if you need somebody to sell it, they'll sell it. Mm-hmm. And they need more of it. And most of it goes, they were telling me, within 30 miles of their facility. Now, they handle 60 different other chemicals and products like molten sulfur. I can't even imagine that.
Yeah.
But they do. But 2/3 of their business is now biodiesel, renewable diesel. And so met these guys at our conference in Fort Worth, and we really hit it off. And they heard the farmers were coming out there. They wanted to be involved, and so absolutely got them involved. And now I think we might bring our congressional staffers there in the fall with us to see what they're doing. But it's always interesting to see what they play such a key role that nobody understands. Mm-hmm. I sure didn't. I mean, it's a transloading facility, and I always heard that, what's that? It's like, well, you take a truck and a rail car and you wet hose from the rail car to the truck. But, well, that sounds simple, but it's actually, do it on a commercial scale. It's not so simple. And these guys complex. Are really good at it. And so I really appreciate what they're doing. They're helping us facilitate the movement of biodiesel from around the country, from the Midwest into this really tough market, Southern California.
Absolutely, yeah. It's always exciting when you hear someone say, we are bullish on biodiesel, and then they show you how it's being done, too. Exactly.
It's so exciting to be out there. We were visiting PepsiCo Frito-Lay's plant, and what a great story that is. Mm-hmm. We got to talk to Adam Buchenbach, their fleet sustainability director, that implementing the B100 program around the country. They're doing R100 in California, but everywhere else they're looking at B100, and which is exciting. But even more exciting is that he's done regularly calls with other major fleets around the country looking to do their B100 program, not renewable, B100. And they're talking about, how do we do this? You know, we're talking major fleets. They're trying to go work together to how do we make, put together supply points for B100, make that available at different truck stops and that. So it's fascinating. Plus, it was fun to go through a Frito-Lay corn processing plant where we were eating Cool Ranch Doritos.
I'm a Doritos fan. I will eat the whole chip bag if it's put in front of me. And to have it fresh off the line, it was still warm and crunchy. Oh, you're taking me back, Tom.
Yeah, and our farmers were so excited. They're bringing the Midwest corn in from Missouri, Nebraska, and they literally get it off the train, hopper train, to it into their facility within 12 hours. It comes from a corn kernel to a Cheeto, Frito, Dorito, Tostito, you name it. It's
there. Yeah. And PepsiCo did talk a lot about their regenerative farming practices as well, which I think our crew really appreciated.
Yeah, they buy 7 million acres of ag products a year, including a lot of soybeans and corn acres. So they want to work with them now to get lower carbon corn and soy, so it all goes through the supply chain.
Got another tour of World Energy Paramount, too. SAF is just one of those big topics right now, and they were nice enough to let us in and take a look at their new facility, which is currently undergoing renovation. Yeah,
that would be an understatement. A $3.5 billion expansion of their current renewable diesel plant there in Paramount. Paramount, just a little suburb just outside of Los Angeles. They're going from maybe 40 million gallons of renewable diesel SAF production, sustainable aviation fuel production, to 300 million gallons plus. I was just talking to Minnesota soy processors yesterday, and I was telling them we were out there last week. He goes, I bet we just sent up some rail cars of soybean oil out to them to process. He said, you probably saw his cars full of soybean oil.
How about that?
Another story where we're bringing soybean oil from the Midwest, taking it out to places like World Energy Paramount. They turn it into renewable diesel and jet fuel. Isn't that neat?
Yes.
I know the Iowa soybean farmers have the T-shirt, "We grow jet fuel."
I know. You have one of those too. I've seen
I did.
it.
I stole one. So, yeah. And so when you fly out LAX, one of our soybean farmers from Iowa sent me a picture when she was flying out of the United terminal. It's like every United flight out LAX has sustainable aviation fuel in it.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think people realize that it's already being used. When you talk about SAF, it seems like something so far off in the distance, but it's actually being used today.
Absolutely. Used to, San Francisco, LAX, and then the area airports as well, like Van Nuys Corporate Airport. I've heard some pretty high profile users out of there.
Yep. Using
some fuel. I know a guy that works on Taylor Swift's jet. We're going to try to work on that angle.
Can I get involved with that project?
Absolutely. So, anyway, there's so many opportunities for where our industry is going, and California is a great showcase in like the low carbon fuel standard, where we fit in with that, with sustainable aviation fuel.
But the marine sector also.
Well, exactly. California sometimes just does California things, and one of those things that mandate, and they just mandated all the harbor craft, coastal craft are going to use renewable diesel. Now, we pushed back on that. We tried to get biodiesel in it, and we weren't able to, at that point. We're going to continue to revisit that. But right now, all the harbor craft, that's the tugboats, the ferries, we did a little charter tour of the Port of Long Beach that was running on renewable diesel. And then they also did the same thing. That was last year. This year, they mandated off-road diesel had to do renewable diesel. Again, we're trying to get biodiesel into that. And that's, there's about 600 million gallon markets right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone else who's on 100% renewable diesel was Metrolink. That was another stop on our tour. Had the opportunity to sit down with their sustainability director, Lisa Colicchio. Have a listen to our conversation. Well, we are in sunny California at the Central Maintenance Facility for Metrolink. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us and for hosting our farmers on this tour out here in California. We've been having a great time, great presentation that we went over just a few minutes ago. So let's kind of recap that for some of our listening audience as well. Metrolink has been up to a lot lately. 100% renewable diesel is what you're running on now. Go ahead and just give us the highlights of what it took to get there.
Well, it took a village and quite a bit of research, but we are so happy to tell our story and get more people on board of using renewable fuel. A few years ago, we were testing and learning about renewable fuel. And as we are embarking on and trying to have a zero emissions future, and really be responsible about our emissions, we thought and 95% of our emissions come solely from the fuel in our tanks in our locomotives. We thought the responsible thing to do would be to look at our fuel and what options are out there. Before you can get to zero with going all electric on locomotives or hydrogen, what can we do today with our fuel? So in talking with CARB and other locomotives agencies in the area, we stumbled on renewable diesel. And we thought it was too good to be true, right? It's a drop-in fuel replacement. You just pour it in your diesel engine and it goes. And so we began testing it back in 2021. And lo and behold, it works, and there was no degradation with the engine, and it works just like diesel, as well as there's, the filters, there's no loss of fuel consumption. It performs exactly like diesel. And so then we ran a much longer test for over a 12-month period, and we tried it with both types of our locomotives, an older Tier 2 diesel, as well as a more modern efficiency, the cleanest Tier 4 engine you can have. And we were just ecstatic about how this fuel performs.
And to your knowledge, are you is Metrolink the very first train system to go 100% renewable?
Actually, that is true, because back in 2022, we decided to make the leap. Others have tested, but no one has ever made the leap to a full transition. And so we said, well, it works. Why would we not? And so we had all of our operations folks, everyone was on board. Our OEMs, said yes, gave us the approval and the green light. So we said, we're doing this. We're making the commitment. Let's do this today.
And go ahead and give us some background on Metrolink too. This is a commuter train.
Correct. So we came into existence in 1992, and we have over 546 route miles along Southern California, and we're kind of the backbone and running on the freight lines throughout Southern California.
I think my question, just for people who aren't familiar with Metrolink, who aren't in Southern California too, what is the ridership and how many people do you think are being effective just with the air quality with using renewable fuels? Right.
So we were commuter rail, and now we are transitioned to a regional rail. And not only to our riders who are benefiting by having this cleaner fuel on our trains, but also with the communities. Through our 546 route miles, 80% of the area we travel is through disadvantaged communities because it is the old freight lines. And so that's what we're so happy about, is that it's not just our riders that we're able to clean up the air for, it's all those surrounding communities. And that's what gives us the impetus and really what our focus was on, is cleaning up the air for Southern California.
And that was something that you said, there's a neighborhood just across the street from your facility here in LA, and they had complaints over the years. They're not complaining anymore, though.
No, right. Emissions is not one of their complaints anymore. And so we were happy to bring them in and explain to them along the way through our journey of what we were doing, not only in procuring, better and more efficient fuel and better engines with our Tier 4, but then with the fuel that we're using in those engines is, fossil-free fuel. And so for that, they're very grateful and thankful, because they breathe those emissions in every single day. This impacts them and their children. And so they're very happy that we are very strong in our commitment towards getting a bridge to zero.
So I know this didn't just happen overnight. It is a drop-in fuel. It's a replacement fuel, but obviously a lot of testing went into making sure that this would work and be a good solution for you all. Like you said, it's a solution that's available right now to implement. Can you walk us through some of the testing that took place and what that process looked like?
Yeah, it was very rigorous because we wanted to be very, thoughtful, purposeful, but also this equipment is millions of dollars. And so we wanted to make sure we had the approvals from the OEMs, but also along the way that we weren't going to suffer from our maintenance perspective or from our service perspective. Those were, the utmost that we had to maintain those same factors and status as when we were running diesel, right? So we weren't going to take a hit and degrade our service or our maintenance. And so we had a very rigorous testing. We had consultants help us devise a very rigorous testing plan. And we ran that on our older locomotives for about 6 months. And then we transitioned that to our newer locomotives for another year. And at every step of the way, even some of our engineers didn't even know that the fuel in that tank was renewable diesel, because we wanted to make sure, were they going to notice a change in horsepower or throttle? And they didn't. And so that was just another testament to us, or another vote of confidence of why we should move forward, because at every step of the way, there was no issues with maintenance or, fuel consumption loss or degradation of the equipment, and so all those standards are being met all along the way. And so we said, well, we must go all in.
About how much fuel do you all use?
That's a great question. With our total fleet, we consume about 8 million gallons a year. So a pretty big quantity, for Southern California. And with this switch to renewable diesel, it is the equivalent of taking 14,000 cars off the road, the CO2 that we're reducing from the atmosphere.
Yeah, so that's significant.
Exactly.
And I know it's numbers that you love to tout.
Yeah.
And obviously made a big bang, a big splash with announcing 100% renewable diesel as well. It's something that you're wanting your customers or your ridership to also recognize. And you've labeled all of the train cars with stickers about it too.
Right. Because, we had a big PR splash, right? So, when we did the big unveiling and we announced to, all of Southern California, we're making this big switch as being the first network to make this transition 100% in the nation, it was a big deal. So we had our elected officials, we had our board of directors, a very big formal PR launch. But we knew that, life goes on, and really after that, big initial marketing push, we wanted to make sure that every time a rider stepped on a train, on and off our trains, they knew what was in that tank. It was really important that every day we were marketing and promoting using this renewable fuel and being fossil fuel free. And so, yes, we designed some, fancy labels that are on our tank that broadly promote it's 100% renewable fuel in that tank.
What has the reaction been from elected officials, state officials, just the community overall?
I mean, they're ecstatic. First of all, they don't really believe. And I'm like, oh my, this is hard to believe. And I'm so glad that you did it. But when we tell them really it's, plant-based fuel is what's in that tank, they're ecstatic. And they're like, we didn't even know this exists. So not only are they happy that we're making this transition, but we're now educating them that there are other types of fuels. Everything doesn't have to be fossil fuel. And so it's a plant-based fuel that is in our tank. And so we're then also educating the public about this.
Yeah. How are you taking steps to educate the public?
Every opportunity we can. Obviously there's many opportunities and campaigns throughout the year. And so we're always just integrating what we're doing around sustainability and our renewable fuel into our messaging, because we need to make it just continuous and integrated. So constantly promoting either through social media channels or through press releases that we're adding on to other content that we do. Continually doing outreach and messaging to our riders and to the community at large. And
this was something that it was an internal decision to start looking at reducing your emissions. This wasn't mandated, so to speak.
Absolutely no mandate at all. It was because we want to strive to be a zero emission railroad, and we see alternative fuel as a bridge solution to zero. It's just the most responsible thing we could be doing today, and why not? And then obviously through our procurement practices, we're actually able to not only be environmentally responsible and sustainable in the fuel that we're using, but financially responsible because we're actually getting it and able to procure it at a lower cost than regular diesel.
How are other railroads responding to it? Are they reaching out to you with questions?
Yeah, they other railroads have reached out and asked us questions, but what's also interesting is other entities, such as, utility providers have asked us about it, for their generators. And so, really anything with a diesel engine could be running on renewable fuel or on alternative fuel. And so we're, wanting to, scream from the, hilltops that, anyone with an engine, with a diesel engine, should be using renewable fuel today. It's readily available, and it just makes the most sense in our transition to zero. Let's not wait for zero. Let's do something responsible today.
That's basically our messaging as well.
Yeah.
We tout better, cleaner now. And
Yeah.
that last bullet, now, is just so important. And I think it goes back to educating people and letting them know their options as well. I do want to ask you a question. Being in LA, you've got the Olympics coming in a few years, and I understand there's going to be some changes to how people get there to the venues.
Yes, many people don't know yet that it will be a car-free Olympics. So one of the reasons that LA won the opportunity to host in 2028 is a couple things. One is we are not building any new venues. So we're using all existing venues, which again, the most sustainable you can make. But the other thing is that it is a car-free Olympics. So at any venue where anyone's going to view a game, you will not be able to park a vehicle. So we hope that public transportation will be the way that all people will be able to, view and watch games in person. So they'll have to take public transportation.
Yeah, and what a great way to see those stickers on the side of the trains.
Exactly.
And understand that there are other options out there that are sustainable now.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And what we hope will be a spillover, right? So the Olympics in 2028 being car free, is kind of the flag. But then after that, we hope the spillover effect will be that the whole LA region will be much more sustainable and riding public transportation much more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Is there anything else that you just want to add that maybe I didn't ask about?
We're just happy to tell our story, and we just want to be kind of the beacon and case study for others who are either considering it or want to learn more, who have diesel engines. Please just use this fuel now. We're happy to tell you our success story and would love for others to join us in this bridge to zero and cleaning up the emissions.
Okay, so one thing that I really enjoyed that Lisa said was, let's not wait for zero. Let's do something responsible today. And she said that everyone with a diesel engine can use these fuels, which that's the message, right? You don't have to wait. You can implement change today. And what an exciting way to see that in action. We had all of our stakeholders and farmers take a picture by the stamp that said 100% renewable diesel. She was so excited to be using plant-based fuels as well. So just a great stop on the tour.
Oh yeah, Metrolink was super, and I like what she said. We can do this now. Why are we waiting? Mm-hmm. And sometimes we hear that from people that want to decarbonize. We're going to wait for the whatever the other technology. A lot of times it's EVs, and so a lot of our application it's going to be the OEMs say it's going to be decades.
Yeah. Well, and the train cars have such a long lifespan, too, that she
30,
said,
40 years.
Yeah, when they're going through these disadvantaged communities with older trains, it's just letting off a lot of emissions. So I think they also really value the health aspect that comes with it, too, and creating cleaner environments for the communities that their rail cars go through.
That's a great point. Remember, their neighborhood was always complaining when they started up those locomotives in the morning. They were, big cloud of diesel exhaust. Now they don't have that.
Yep.
And it was an issue they had to deal with quite a bit with that community. Nobody wants to breathe that, so don't blame them. And we did put I said we did try to educate them on biodiesel as well. You can do B100. I said we got the Union Pacifics, we got the BNs, the BNSFs are all looking at are using biodiesel, not looking at it, and they want to go to higher blends. And there's no reason why their locomotives, same engines, LabTech, Progressive Rail.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I think that that's something that just education needs to be brought to a lot of people's attention. And that's something that she said a lot of people didn't know about renewable diesel. They didn't know as much about biodiesel. So just spreading that word and it's just something really important. And I was glad we were able to do that with their group too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there's a large petroleum distributor in Los Angeles, Amber Resources, talking to them this past January. And if you call them up you want diesel, you're going to get a blend of 80% renewable, 20% bio, unless you tell them otherwise, because that's becoming the default blend in California. So, biodiesel has a nice market share out there.
Yeah. And, like we always say, they're better together.
Better together. That's exactly right.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Tom, it was fun in California with you. It was fun having you in the studio today, too. Thanks so much for sharing with our listeners out there a little recap of the California marketplace.
Thank you, Heather.
And thank you for listening. And just be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And join us next week for another episode of the Better Cleaner Now podcast.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. To catch all the latest from Clean Fuels Alliance America, follow us at cleanfuels.org. The Better Cleaner Now podcast is a production of Clean Fuels Alliance America. That's all for us. Now it's your turn to be better, cleaner now.